A U.S. military aircraft touched down on Indian soil, marking an unusual and somber event. This time, it wasn't carrying diplomats or dignitaries, nor was it laden with humanitarian aid or military supplies. Instead, the plane held a somber cargo: over 100 Indian citizens deported from the United States for violating immigration laws. These individuals, who had once harbored dreams of a better life, were now returning home under distressing circumstances. The scene at Amritsar's International Airport was a stark reminder of the human cost of illegal immigration, a poignant tableau of broken dreams and harsh realities. Families waited anxiously, their faces etched with worry and anticipation, hoping to catch a glimpse of their loved ones. The emotional reunions that followed were filled with tears, relief, and a sense of profound loss. Many of the deportees, some in tears, spoke of their shattered dreams and the harsh realities of their ordeal. They recounted stories of exploitation, false promises, and the grueling conditions they endured. They described arduous journeys, perilous border crossings, and the constant fear of apprehension. The treacherous paths they took were fraught with danger, and many had risked their lives in the hope of a better future. For these individuals, the promise of a better life in America had turned into a nightmare of detention and deportation. The reality of being held in detention centers, far from the freedom they sought, was a harsh wake-up call. The arrival of the deportees sent shockwaves through communities across India, particularly in states like Punjab and Haryana. These regions, where aspirations for overseas opportunities often drive young people into the clutches of unscrupulous agents, were now grappling with the fallout. The dreams of many young people in these areas are often fueled by tales of success abroad, but the harsh reality faced by the deportees has cast a shadow over these aspirations. The incident has also ignited a political firestorm, with opposition parties accusing the Modi government of failing to protect its citizens abroad. The political discourse has been charged with accusations and counter-accusations, reflecting the gravity of the situation. Opposition leaders have been vocal in their criticism, demanding accountability and better protection for Indian citizens overseas. The government's response has been scrutinized, adding to the political tension. As the deportees grapple with their uncertain futures, their faces reflect a mix of relief, sorrow, and uncertainty. The journey ahead is unclear, and the challenges they face are daunting. The incident has cast a long shadow over U.S.-India relations, raising questions about the treatment of migrants and the effectiveness of diplomatic channels in addressing such sensitive issues. The bilateral ties between the two nations are now under scrutiny. As discussions continue, the focus remains on finding a humane and effective solution to the complex issue of migration. The hope is that through dialogue and cooperation, both nations can address the underlying causes and work towards a more just and compassionate approach to immigration. The recent deportation of Indian citizens from the U.S. has ignited a political firestorm in India, with opposition parties seizing on the issue to criticize Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government. The opposition has been vocal, organizing rallies and press conferences to bring attention to what they see as a failure of leadership. Accusations of inaction and indifference have been leveled at the ruling BJP party, with critics arguing that the government has failed to adequately address the plight of Indian migrants facing deportation from the U.S. and other countries. The opposition has been relentless in parliament, demanding answers and accountability. Critics argue that the government has not only been slow to respond but has also shown a lack of empathy towards the affected families. The images of migrants in detention centers and the protests that have erupted across the country have only added fuel to the fire. Opposition leaders have pointed to the lack of robust consular support for detained migrants, highlighting the need for more proactive measures. They argue that the current support system is inadequate and leaves many migrants in a vulnerable position. Additionally, there is a glaring absence of effective rehabilitation programs for those deported back to India. Many deportees find themselves struggling to reintegrate into society, facing economic and social challenges.
The government's inaction is appalling. Our citizens deserve better. We need a comprehensive plan to support our people, both abroad and when they return home. We need strong consular support that can provide immediate assistance and guidance to those in distress, and rehabilitation programs for those who are deported, ensuring they can rebuild their lives with dignity and support.
The government, for its part, has defended its record, highlighting its efforts to engage with foreign governments on the issue of illegal immigration. Officials have pointed to ongoing diplomatic efforts and negotiations aimed at protecting the rights of Indian nationals abroad. They emphasize that the government is committed to providing assistance to Indian nationals abroad, ensuring their safety and well-being. However, the optics of the recent deportation flight, particularly the use of a U.S. military aircraft, have proven difficult to counter. The sight of Indian migrants being escorted onto military planes has sparked outrage and concern. The incident has exposed the vulnerabilities of Indian migrants seeking a better life abroad, highlighting the precarious nature of their situation. This has fueled a sense of anger and frustration among sections of the Indian public, who feel that their government has let them down. As the political battle over the deportation issue rages on, it remains to be seen how the Modi government will address the concerns of its citizens abroad. The opposition continues to press for more concrete actions and solutions. The government must navigate this sensitive issue carefully to mitigate the diplomatic fallout and reassure its citizens that their welfare is a top priority. Beyond the political rhetoric, the recent deportation of Indian migrants from the U.S. has raised serious concerns about the treatment of deportees and the adherence to human rights standards. This issue has sparked a heated debate among policymakers, human rights activists, and the general public. Reports of deportees being shackled and restrained for the duration of their long journey, including during bathroom breaks, have sparked outrage and condemnation. These reports have highlighted the harsh realities faced by those being deported, often under conditions that many consider to be inhumane.
These practices are inhumane and degrading. They strip individuals of their dignity and subject them to unnecessary suffering. They violate the basic dignity of individuals, regardless of their immigration status. The treatment of these deportees has raised significant ethical and moral questions.
Human rights groups have denounced these practices, arguing that they violate the basic dignity of individuals, regardless of their immigration status. These groups have called for immediate reforms to ensure that deportation processes are conducted in a humane and respectful manner. The use of restraints on deportees has been defended by U.S. authorities as a necessary security measure, particularly on long-haul flights. Authorities argue that these measures are essential to maintain order and safety during the deportation process. However, critics argue that such measures are often excessive and applied indiscriminately without proper assessment of individual risk. They contend that a more nuanced approach is needed, one that balances security concerns with the rights and dignity of deportees. The shackling of deportees has been condemned by the United Nations and other international bodies, which have called for an end to this practice. These organizations emphasize the importance of upholding human rights standards in all aspects of immigration enforcement. The controversy surrounding the treatment of Indian deportees has shone a spotlight on the often overlooked human cost of immigration enforcement, raising questions about the balance between security concerns and the protection of fundamental rights. This ongoing debate underscores the need for a more compassionate and just approach to immigration policies. The recent deportations have cast a long shadow over the ongoing bilateral talks between the United States and India. The diplomatic challenges posed by the deportations have added a layer of complexity to the discussions, with both sides navigating the delicate balance between enforcing immigration laws and maintaining strong bilateral relations.
The deportations have certainly added a layer of complexity to the discussions. Both sides need to navigate this delicate balance carefully.
As the talks progress, the treatment of migrants and the effectiveness of diplomatic channels in addressing such sensitive issues will undoubtedly remain at the forefront of the agenda. The incident has underscored the need for a more nuanced approach to immigration enforcement, one that respects human rights while addressing security concerns. It remains to be seen how the U.S. and India will reconcile these challenges and work towards a more humane and effective immigration policy.
Navigating the deportation dilemma is, well, incredibly complex. We have to consider not just the legal aspects, but also the humanitarian and political ramifications.
Indeed, the issue is multifaceted. It involves balancing national security, human rights, and international relations.
The human cost of these deportations is, well, immense. Families are torn apart, children are left without parents, and communities are disrupted. It's a crisis that demands urgent attention and, honestly, compassionate solutions.
The plight of deported migrants is a stark reminder of the human toll of immigration policies. As nations grapple with the complexities of migration, finding humane and effective solutions becomes ever more critical.
Balancing strategic interests with human rights concerns is, I must say, a delicate act. On one hand, countries have the right to secure their borders and manage immigration. On the other hand, they must uphold international human rights standards and ensure that individuals are treated with dignity and respect.
The challenge lies in navigating these competing priorities without compromising on fundamental human rights. It's a task that requires, both diplomatic finesse and a commitment to ethical principles.
The deportations, I believe, could indeed strain the relationship between Prime Minister Modi and President Trump. Both leaders have, let's say, strong nationalist agendas, but the fallout from these deportations might create tensions that are difficult to navigate.
The bond between Modi and Trump has been a significant factor in US-India relations. However, the issue of deportations could test this relationship, potentially leading to diplomatic challenges and, political friction. As we look to the future, the cooperation between the US and India on migration will be crucial. Both nations must, work together to address the root causes of migration, develop fair policies, and ensure that the rights of migrants are protected. The path forward will require, collaboration, understanding, and a shared commitment to human dignity.